Classes in session.
Hey, and welcome to Unlearn 16 Classes in Session, guys. Today you just get me. You get me, but I have a new shirt. Check the shirt out. It's nice, right? Star Wars. Anyways, you get me, and what we're going to talk about today is obviously what I'm the most passionate about: teaching, right? How I do my job, how I get to do my job, how I foresee the transition of our education going, how it's being, let's say, manipulated or gutted and defunded in places like Ontario, Canada. I know the United States is going through all the stuff they're going through, so I'm going to kind of draw upon that because I think it has value and meaning to what's going on here. And I'm going to talk about how, for the most part, we need a resurgence in our education. We we need to understand, and I thought we understood this, that kids aren't tiny little robots, that if you do things the same way, everything works out in the end, and we standardize this test and we do this over here. And somehow that is what's going to put us at the top of, I don't know, whatever mountain everybody seems to be trying to climb. Um, where am I going to start? Well, I'm going to have to start, and I'm going to try to fraction this off into different disciplines, right? First and foremost, we start with elementary. Now, we've developed this methodology in Ontario, and I know they do it in the United States to some degree, of the notion, the no child left behind. And I know I've touched on that before. So we kind of push kids through and try to give them extra help and give them accommodations and modify and do all of these different things so they stay with their class, they stay with their age. Here's my problem. People, kids, don't work like that. Just because you are 8 doesn't mean that your brain is working at an 8-year-old level compared to the 8-year-old sitting next to you, right? Now, I'm not saying we get rid of all sort of standards of measurement and things like that. It's not what I'm saying at all. I am saying that my 8-year-old brain versus another student's 8-year-old brain probably works at different speeds and understands different things at different rates. We need to be cognizant of that. And the more we just say, you're 8 years old, you stay with the 8-year-olds no matter what, we're going to push you through because you're going to suffer some sort of social consequence by not being with your age group. All we do by doing that is push along a student to a higher level where learning becomes more problematic, where learning in school starts to now deteriorate their self-esteem, their ability to be with their peers and enjoy it, their ability to like school or feel successful in it, their capacity to see education down the road in the future, right? We are killing that. Now, we have two ways to handle the problem. We can either build curriculum and courses, and here's the part nobody likes. Institute extra pieces of help in the courses you are having problems with rather than push you further on down the road. So eventually, for example, you just get to grade 10 math, say you hate it, you never want to take it again, and that's the bottom line. So if I'm 8 years old and I'm not doing well in math, okay, you can make the math easier. Now, I don't have a problem accommodating, giving longer on test times, giving longer to sort of work through a problem, because sometimes it's not our ability to comprehend, it's the speed at which we can comprehend and then we can problem solve. So I don't think there's a necessary purpose to rushing kids, to making them do it at a certain speed. Some people might disagree with me. I don't think that's the fight to fight. I think getting kids to understand conceptually, getting kids to learn the foundations of things. I'm using math because math tends to be one of those things that kids learn to hate, just hate. And the only reason they learn to hate it is because it didn't come easy and nobody was around them to then help explain it A different way, a different way, a different way, a different way. There was nobody around them that said, okay, well, the school's going to pour money into you getting better at math. And while that same person could be struggling with math, another person is struggling with spelling and grammar in English. Another person can't do anything in gym class. Another person can't carry a tune to save their life. This one, me, right here. I'm the problem, right? We all have places where we don't excel. And here's again the issue. As a society, we've decided that if you excel in the math and science, you're a genius and you're to be revered and you're going to have a great life and all these jobs. And if you excel in art, what a waste. If you excel in history and social sciences and literature, well, you kind of have to be good in English, but everything else is pretty much, you can just, what are you going to do with that? We've decided how we're going to categorize those kids. And what we really need to learn is that every single student, barring some, obvious, incredible exceptions, every single student will have strengths and will have weaknesses. And in my opinion, and this is just my lowly opinion, the point of the education system isn't just to glorify their strengths. It's to pour everything they have to minimize, to work on, to overcome their weaknesses. Isn't that what school is supposed to be? So what do we do instead? Well, we don't want to do that because let's be honest, it's time consuming and it's expensive. And that's the only bottom line to this. Make no mistake, it's about cost, time and money, period. So as we're sitting listening to this, I want you guys to decide, what are you willing to pay? And I'm mostly obviously speaking in a tax base here. What are you willing to pay in order for your child to maximize their strengths and consistently, and here's the kicker, understand and believe that it is their job to get better at their weaknesses, that the courses they're not naturally great at and sometimes really struggle with, that is the job of an education system that we see this upward progress in those courses as well. And it's that very struggle. It's the notion, by the way, that everybody is struggling in a different way. And it's the idea that a school's job and a teacher's job is to make sure that whatever you are struggling with, I don't try to pad it. I don't try to protect you from it. I don't work around it and let you do so. No. I say, okay, this is the hard thing. This is the hard thing that you are going to overcome, that you are going to bust your butt for. I'm going to be right there with you as a teacher. We are going to bust our butts to overcome, to get better at. That doesn't mean that every course you're going to get a 90. It means you're going to do great in things you're naturally inclined to do, things you're driven to, things you're impassioned of. And then in everything else, we are going to work on you bettering yourself. Can you imagine if we started talking about school to our young students that way, right? That we started saying, some days I want to start by everybody putting up hands in class, myself including, and say, okay, what do I stink at? What do I feel that I'm not good at, right? I put up my hand and I go, I can't play an instrument. I can't sing. I'm a horrible artist. And so what has our educational system taught me to do? I'll tell you what they taught me to do. I dropped all the classes, right? You get to grade 9, never to see them again. And why? Because I didn't have a natural affinity for art. You don't think that art adds, and music and drama add pieces of our soul? Of course they do. It is our culture. It is this sort of grounding foundational reality that we all connect on. And that doesn't mean I have to be a super talented musician, but to work the part of my brain that starts to comprehend music, building a piece of music, what that looks like. Because I can assure you, everybody has a favorite song, a favorite movie, a favorite, like a piece of art that speaks to them, right? And all of those things are true while you can't actually do it. Well, you've decided you just don't have the talent, so I'm not going to put in the work. Michael Jordan, guy gets kicked off his high school basketball team. Let me say that again. And I know everybody's heard this, but Michael Jordan gets kicked off his high school basketball team. He had two choices. He could have gone about his day and done something else and gone to business school or become a lawyer or whatever other things that a guy with his kind of brain could have done. But he decided, nope, that's not the end of my career. I'm going to work harder. I will be in the gym twice as much. I will train harder than ever before. I will listen. I will absorb every piece of information I can possibly get my hands on. Now, the beauty of a guy like that is, guess what? That's his care. I don't know where he got it. I'm assuming it's just his soul, right? Why aren't we teaching young kids that they're all Michael Jordans? And I know I'm using sports as an analogy here, but why aren't we teaching all kids that it's not just where you start, it's about where you finish. It's not just about what you think your capacity is. It's the knowledge that your capacity might be limited, but you are going to push through anyways. You want to know why universities take mature students? I'll tell you why. It doesn't matter what you're 30, 35 years old, you want to go back to university, they're taking you. Want to know why? Because at 30 and 35, you all of a sudden know what learning is actually about, what hard work looks like, what the notion of if I put in enough, I will get there. I don't need to be great in the beginning, but I will get there. And you chuck these ideas that you have to be perfect from the offset. Right? They know those people, those mature students are going to work. And it's the who's going to work and who's going to hit that roadblock or that obstacle, and they're going to keep driving it back anyway. Isn't that what we want? I would hire a person, swear to God, I would hire a person knowing that if I looked at their academic average over the course of a duration and I saw improvement year after year after year, wherever, and even if they started lower, even if they started in the 60s, and you see this natural incline, and then you see it carry through college, university, that tenacity is unless we're talking about just Beethoven brilliance, right? And I think brilliant people would acknowledge the same. It's about getting it wrong 3,000 times and still doing it one more time, one more time, one more time. And you know what's interesting? If it comes easy to somebody, if something comes easy, I've taught a lot of students where they get 90s, 95s, flying off, like it's so much easier. And I'm like, guys, listen, I need to keep pushing you harder because you're going to get to a point where something is challenging. And if you haven't figured out how to work through the challenging thing, everything will come to a screeching halt. I'm more sometimes worried about the kids that have coasted in high school with super high averages going off to university. All of a sudden they hit that physics class and they're like, what the heck is this? I don't understand it. Nor do I know how to take a C on a test and not let it destroy me? How do I take a C on an assignment and go, okay, now what do I got to do? What do I got to do next time? Rather than packing it up. And I think that we haven't done a very good job in our society of teaching that. I don't think we've done a good job at all. And I think it's about cost. I think it's about money. I think it's about, well, Joanna, come on now. If this is what they're naturally good at, whatever it is, History, let's say. They're just great at history. They can memorize everything. They know everything. They push, they push, they push. He doesn't need math. Are you joking? Not only are other subjects essential to understanding the world, to understanding all pieces that we sort of put together in order to truly see a bigger picture, but that's a different part of your brain. Spatial intelligence, right? Auditory intelligence, bodily kinesthetic intelligence. All of these things are in our head, and all these individuals learn differently. Just because you learn differently doesn't mean you don't keep trying to learn different aspects along the way. And it doesn't mean that you don't stretch those muscles. If you consider math a muscle, chemistry a muscle, phys ed a muscle, drama, English, they're all muscles. They're all muscles in your brain. Some of them we need to work out a little bit more. And some of them we need to work out a lot more, right? Not to make this analogy go too far, but it's like math and science are like the biceps and pecs of the all these guys walking around with shoulders and upper bodies like tanks and legs that can barely hold themselves up and hamstrings so weak that at the mere thought of the quadricep taking one more leg day is going to just snap your tendons because you haven't built a balanced body. It's not about strong individual muscles, or it shouldn't be, metaphorically speaking, and quite literally for those working out right now. It's about a balanced body. You don't have a balanced body, you're going to break. And in this day and age, in this time, we need to be, and we're expected to be, more aware, more clear about international events, more clear and aware about the intricacies and the interdependencies of all different sorts of economic practices and job forces and new jobs coming up. And how do I transition? How do I get transferable skills so I can go to A, job B, job C? Because the days where you get out of high school, you get out of university, and you get your job, and you put in your 30 years, put on your gold watch, and call it a day and retire with a beautiful, beautiful pension are done. And that's not to say it's a bad thing. I think a lot of people look at that and go, oh my God, so depressing. No, it's not. No, it's not. Because I think the soul, the spirit, whatever you want to call it, the thing that makes us human is driven to create, is driven to learn, is driven to expand what they know and how they apply it. We like the stability of that 30-year workforce because it gives us money. But I would argue it deadens our soul. I would argue it limits who we are, who we want to grow into, and who we are destined to change and become. We think, hilariously enough, grade 10, you walk into that careers class. In Ontario, we do a careers class in grade 10. You're 15 years old. And you sit down and you do like a personality test and they tell you what you're going to be. You are 52% likely to be a law enforcement officer. And now what, off you go to do that? The notion that we're supposed to know our careers when, let's be perfectly honest, we have a very limited scope of what exists, right? And how do we know until we've taken all the courses and dabbled our brilliant brains, and I think everybody's brilliant, dabbled our brains into many, many, many different disciplines, surrounded ourselves with different people, with different passions, tried things and sucked at them tried things, sucked at them, still enjoyed them, so you keep doing it. Tried things, sucked at them, you hate them, but you keep doing it because to hell with that thing being the thing that stops me from learning. That needs to be taught in elementary school. Want to know how you do that? Lots more money. Specialty teachers, number one, I've talked about that before. Specialty teachers that are driven and singularly focused. So when you ask me about how to do fractions, I have 37 ways to tell you until you get it. Math is about recognizing patterns, right? And you can recognize patterns or you can memorize patterns. But if you can get to a point where you recognize the pattern, you start to understand math. And if you understand math, then all of a sudden everything doesn't seem as difficult. But understanding math for some people as opposed to others, recognizing patterns just takes more time. And probably, one of those 30 ways of explaining it, it's one of those 30. But you're going to put 30 kids in a grade 5 classroom, you can't do that. You can put 30 kids in a grade 5 classroom, you can't do that, and then not give extra help after school, before school, Saturday sessions. And if we were honest about it, every kid would need more. Every single kid. The kid that doesn't want to do phys ed, why? Well, they don't have the bodily coordination yet. Can you teach? Have you ever seen a kid get a physical thing? Like, I heaven help me, I teach gym. It's a loose descriptor. And when I can teach a kid to do something that they thought they couldn't do, shoot a basketball, throw a baseball, hit that backhand. When I can teach that and you see the kid, you see it turn on. That sense of accomplishment, kids should be able to feel that in every single class. The difference is it's so clear in a gym class when you get it or you don't get it, when you excel and when you don't excel. Whereas in other classes, we haven't made it as clear, right? We haven't made, and some of this is teacher's fault, it's my fault. I haven't made it clear when you go from understanding a concept to comparing a concept to criticizing a concept to dismantling a concept and pulling things out and applying it. That's the progression. We, as a society, as an educational sort of body, we are sitting and we are resting on our heels at the memorization of a concept. What a waste. What a waste. People say, oh, we're falling behind other yeah, of course we are. Of course we are. And it's not because, and I hate this answer, it's not because kids these days, they get babied, they get this, they get that, they get treated better. No, it's not. Because kids, when I was in elementary school, that maybe were on the spectrum or had levels of anxiety, you know what happened to those kids? They got bounced out of the class. Their education stopped. How many intelligent, genius kids have we stopped from getting educated because we decided they can't get it? I can't even count, guys. And I'm not even talking about discrimination based on race and sex and sexuality and religion and all of those things that fed into it and that gave preconceptions of who people are and what they're allowed to do, what they're capable of. I'm simply talking about different learning styles and abilities of my generation, where when we were met with that, we push them off, right? You don't take advanced courses anymore. You go into that room down the hall and you just like do simple tasks. We don't ever push you ever again because you know what? Some kids just don't get it. Some kids just aren't school kids. I can't say with enough passion how much that's not true. Here's what I will say. Some kids just aren't this stereotypical, lazy, limited, in the box kind of thinking of education. That you're right about. But there's a reason that geniuses can't sit in a classroom. What? Are you joking me? If our education system doesn't encourage the genius and that person leaves our education system and finds education elsewhere, we're broken. We're the problem. It's us. The education system is the issue. We need to build an education system that makes space for geniuses and make space for the place where we suck to build up that kid, expand their minds, expand their ability to apply and dip into every single thing. It costs more money, period. And how dare we limit opportunities on the basis of standardized testing? How many kids do you think we lost? I have no idea even how to gauge this. What study that would find this? How many kids can't sit down and write a standardized test, therefore didn't go to med school, therefore didn't cure cancer? How many? We talk a lot about the discriminatory factors within an education system based on color and sex and religion, and all very, very prominent and very important to discuss. But why don't we talk about it when it comes to prejudicial thought and the pretense of objective testing that has kept out how many kids? How many students? How many kids that didn't do well in their SAT never went to university? Is that because they wouldn't do well in university? Or is that because the system we have built has created the pretense of objectivity to quickly assess who has capacity and who doesn't have capacity, who has the goods and who doesn't? If that were true, shouldn't we be excelling? If that were true, we should be inventing, we should be exploring all new avenues, but it's not. We try to keep the exact same pretentious pretense of a educational system. So when you get an A, you feel good. You feel good? Did you guys ever hear about, there was this kid who I guess went to Harvard and his friend went to state school. And one of them wrote the paper, a research paper. They took it to Harvard and got an A+. They took it to state school and got a B. What? What? A lot of people ask, how do you judge a good teacher? I'll tell you how you judge a good teacher. My job as a high school teacher is to prepare them for university. It's not to get them an 85 or a 90. It's not to handhold. It's not to placate. It's not for them to avoid their weaknesses. It's for them to overcome, build, expand. So when they go off to university and they hit a block, they push through. When they go off to university and they get a C, it doesn't diminish them. When they go to university and they realize, I thought I wanted to take this, but now I'm switching gears. I'm going to take this, but that's okay because I have transferable superpowers that I can go from A to B to C to D all the way down the alphabet if I have to find what I'm great at and what I'm passionate about. That's my job. How well did they do there? That's the only way you judge a teacher. That's it. The kids that stepped out of my classroom, did I give them what they need? Now, you can apply that to university and college. And I know a lot of people are like, university and college sucks. Maybe they do in some points, in some capacity. But here's what I need you to know about college and university. And it's much like high school. You will get what you put in. Let me say it again for those sitting in the back. In education systems, elementary, high school, college, university, it doesn't matter. You will get out of it what you put into it. So if you're looking for a grade, you can probably navigate a course, get a good grade, be done with it, get the piece of paper, move on with your day. But if you're looking for an education, not a piece of paper, I guess there's two kinds of people. And this is why mature students just do it differently. You can be looking for your degree, or you can be looking for an education. Which one's more important? Right? And we teach kids too much to fight for the degree because it's the paper that's going to get them in the door. It's the paper that they need. It's the paper, it's the paper, it's the paper. And what we forgot to tell them is, no, it's the struggle. It's the fight to understand. It's the interesting points of conversion of thousands of perceptions It's the idea that bias exists everywhere and rooting through it. It's the idea that the more I know nothing at all. Very Socrates. That's an education. It's funny. You should come out of university going, I don't know a lot. I know a bit. I know the tip of the iceberg. And you should also come out of university saying, I'm not done. Because education doesn't just have to happen in university walls or college walls at all. I'm a huge proponent of college and university. 2 reasons. Number one, that paper does allow you into doors that you could never get in before. Period. And there's jobs, and unless you have that paper, I mean, they're never even thinking about you. But number two, it tells, or it can show that you've actually been given a structure that you needed to follow. So somebody like me, I need a structure. There's a great quote out of Good Will Hunting that says something to the effect of, you just spent $150,000 on an education that you could have got with $1.50 in late charges from your local library. That's not wrong. I don't disagree with that to an extent. If you have a natural capacity to be able to teach yourself, and even more importantly, the structure that you can impose upon yourself in order to get that job done. I don't think many of us have both of those things at the same time. I think the structure of school is important. Here's what else I think is important about school is sitting beside kids and then adults and then contemporaries and having the debate, having the authentic, big, impressive debates. That's where education lies. Now, a lot of people today want to skip all of that and just debate. Well, school doesn't matter. Philosophy's garbage. Feminism sucks. Cool. What feminist? What philosopher do you find lacking the most? What economic theorist do you think has the greatest relevance to today and why? Look, we can all chirp all we want on Twitter and Instagram, TikTok, on a podcast. But until you can start speaking authentically, intelligently, in an educated fashion about what's been said, you're not really having any sort of original thought, right? You're just parroting things. Can you learn about feminists on your own? Of course you can. Of course you can. Do you? I don't think so. And there's a lot of things that I try to stay out of, right? There's a lot of there's a lot of educated avenues I can't speak to. A lot of people are fighting about, at what age can an individual transition? What should they be allowed to do with their own bodies and not allowed to do? Da, 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 da. And I simply say, and I wish more people would say this, I'm not an endocrinologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a physician. I do not have specialty degrees in gender identity and formation and child psychology. I am not a trans person. So for those 5 reasons, I am going to adhere. I'm going to shut my mouth and I am going to adhere to the more educated, to the people that have spent their lives researching and understanding and doing all of those things, and heaven help me, to the trans community. But we're so busy trying to give an opinion based on minimal fact and usually some anecdotal evidence of like my neighbor or whatever. So when we get to high school and we've taught kids to be better at the things they hate or they're not good at, high school shouldn't be, we don't want kids deciding things, right? But we want kids deciding their future, and they're never going to take these classes again. We are a conundrum of hypocritical life paths for these kids. Because at the end of the day, what we should be doing in high school is forging a more holistic educational model where kids don't get to negate huge elements of education because they don't think they're good or they don't like it enough or they've never tried it. I think they need to have a better understanding of all of that and transition our system into, at some point, your 65 that you got in physics 12 is much more impressive to a university admissions board than the 97 you got in English. Why? Because the 65 in physics is the end of that race. Nobody ever talks that you started at a 35 and you battled and you owned it and you did extra work and you didn't let it stop you from competing. You didn't let it stop you from understanding. Holy crap. Listen, they might not be a physicist. Okay, fine. But I'm telling you right now, their drive and their ability to work their brain, expand the parts of their brain that don't naturally form, that's impressive. Hire that kid. Hire that kid. Put them in that school. Because that strategy, that job to be able to have that confidence and even be insecure and push anyway, guys, why are we not doing this with our students? I'll tell you why. I'm going to say it into the mic here. Money. It costs more. Why is it that the only way we test kids for the most part is through a written test? Our whole lives after university are oral. You talk in a presentation, you sell something, you try to create some sort of social media awareness. You're in advertising. Guys, there are, every time I think of the way people succeed, they do it by figuring out how to stand in a space, have a thought, have an idea, back it up, and do it with vigor and do it with confidence. Why are we not teaching that skill? Outside of university, when's the last time y'all have sat down and taken a written test? What job does that happen in? It doesn't. You know what happens? Boardroom meetings. Want to know what happens? Social media, revelations. You want to know what happens? Like art exhibits. And everywhere we look, the notion of having a voice, a strong voice, is the driving force of success. Why not take the information that we want them to understand and maybe sometimes memorize? But more importantly, guys, more importantly, we want them to be able to criticize it, synthesize it, pull it apart, and apply it. If they can't do that, education hasn't happened. We need to change the definition of education. And we should do it sooner. You want to exist in this world? We have to do it sooner. We've told all these kids their job is to memorize. And then we unleash the internet on them with every piece of information at their fingertips. And we wonder why they have anxiety? Are you joking me? We've unleashed this world of fact without teaching them the skills to criticize, synthesize, and apply. We watch people who have mastered the ability to talk and stand in that space run the world possibly into the ground. And better thinkers, better idea creators are sitting silently by because they don't have that charisma, because they're terrified to stand in the room. You want better people? Empower them. You want a better society? Teach all of them. You want better advances, bigger advances. You want society to get healthier and stronger tomorrow? Stop excluding students based on ridiculous, antiquated ideas of what intelligence and education is. And if you want all of that, guess what? You're going to have to pay for it. And it sure doesn't, it really doesn't start with banning books and limiting access to education and limiting access to word and thought. It doesn't start there. It doesn't start by telling teachers what they can and can't talk about. More ideology, more thought, more pieces. We want history, great. I need personal accounts. I want to hear what the loser side said in that war. You want better history? It has to be bigger. Stop trying to jam. I teach an American history course from 1775 to now. Holy crap. I do the Civil War in 2 days. Why? We're trying to jam thought, we're trying to jam ideas and numbers and dates and people and events into people's head. Why? That's not education. If you don't know what to do with the information, if there's no fundamental aspect to the information and you learn to apply it and stretch your brain, and that goes for art, music, drama, physics, math, all of it. All of it. Oh, all the computer stuff, which I can't do, but nonetheless is vitally important. All of it. How is there not a course yet? A mandatory course on information technology and the internet and deciding and defining what credible sources look like and how you do that. I don't think we can do anything until we do that. Everything is expanded almost to an infinite level. Like, there's no limit anymore to the stuff you can learn. And if there's no limit, what we need to start understanding, we need to start pushing our high school classrooms to do. Dig deeper, smaller areas, apply it, understand the context, understand what happened, understand how the ripple effect, understand how it's happened time and time and time again. We have to start understanding elements and applying it, not just memorizing fact. Memorizing fact, memorizing dates, memorizing formula, applying it, getting my piece of paper, moving on, working at my job for 30 years is not education. It is limiting. And it's not just limiting for the individual, it's limiting for our whole society. So right now, in these last moments of this podcast, decide. What do you want? Do you want more for your kids? Do you want more for our society? Do you want more for our future? And the bottom line is, you get what you pay for. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, guys. Please throw all your comments, questions into the comment section. If you want me to do another podcast on education, I would love to. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you next Tuesday, same bat time, same bat station. Dismissed.